Hi everybody, welcome to this week's video. My name's Rebecca of Artistrebeccals, and on this channel we have fun with art. Let's go. Okay everybody, today we're going to be using the Stillman & Brown Alpha Series sketchbook. It is a mixed media sketchbook and it's 150 GSM. I am testing this out for you guys, and there will be a video when I've completed the sketchbook that will give you my opinion and basically a full review. At the moment, the only one negative I've found is there's no elastic band, which means the pages, they don't stay shut. It does keep flopping open. But once you've put a heavy object on it for, say, overnight, it will then stay flat shut. It's just, that's the only annoyance so far. So, today we're going to be filling we're going to create a masterpiece using regular kids fiber tip pens. So these are cheapo, but they're Stabilo Trio, so not that cheap. Stabilo is quite expensive, but they're basically regular kids. In the United Kingdom, we'd say felt tips, but the rest of the world are calling them fiber tip pens. So that's what we're using today. Regular kids grade stuff. And we're also going to be using a regular water brush. I'll put on screen the brand I'm now using. I recently found this, but by the time the video goes out, it won't be so recent. This is like, say, the 21st of April when I record this video. And this brush is new, like a day old. So far, from the day old, I'm really impressed. No bristles have come out. Whether I'm still happy with it by the time this video comes out, I won't know. If you're interested, let me know, and I will tell you in the comments how this is holding up. Because if you're a long-time subscriber, you know I have been on the lookout to replace my Secure water brush, which I thought was so very good, which it had been, but they had then changed the quality, and it is now like the worst water brush other than the Stettler one. So this is actually impressing me so far. Let's get into what we're doing today. You can see there's pencil marks. You can also see over here where I've already done pen work because I wanted to see the difference. And I'm just going in and testing. This ink has been on here for about 2 weeks. The paper is a little absorbent. Well, I would say quite absorbent, but the pen will still sit on the top. But you have to kind of soak the paper to get the ink activated. So that's old ink. But if we're doing this new page, we will go for quite a chunky Stabilo Max pen. And we're just being really basic and scribbling. And I'll do some here. Sometimes I use these as just a sketching pen because they're water soluble. Or I'll use them to just get a base colour down. A bit like some artists will use acrylic markers as a base for their work. But you see, this is really watered down like a watercolour because we've just put it on and it hasn't had time to seep into the paper, whereas the other has. So it's not moving on the paper so much. But if we had used watercolour paper, even after 2 weeks or more, the pigment would have been on the surface. The difference with paper and watercolour paper and regular paper is absorbency. The thicker the paper, the less absorbent. Technically, that's the theory. But watercolour paper does have a special surface that helps for water to just sit on the surface a little longer. Well, the pigment, the water seeps in, but the pigment stays surface so that you can always activate it. Everything, the water kind of drags the pigment down into the paper, so you can't activate it. But you do have a certain amount of time where you can. As we test here, the darker colour might activate better. And it also depends how wet your brush is. But I do like using. It's a lot more convenient for me at times to use a water brush and these felt tips. Well, fibre tip pens, I must get into saying fibre tip markers. And I'm just not caring, just doing scribbles, as you can see. And I might add in some yellow just to make it even brighter. And just scribble. You don't want to be stressed or worried about doing this. There's no wrong in art. Art teachers will tell you there's wrong, but there is absolutely no wrong way of doing anything in art. It's your way of doing things, and that's what I encourage you to do, is to discover your own way of doing things, because that will be your art style. When everybody gets hung up, and I do, and I have hung up on art style, because everybody is saying, oh, what's your art style? And things like that. And I've never known what it is. But the art style is supposed to be someone can look at your work and they'll instantly recognize it as yours. So that's why I say, develop your way of doing things. That's the easiest way that I understand of explaining art style, because that's how I understand it. Try, if you can, to stay away from black, but again, that's up to you. I say that because I have been very guilty of it, of just going for black, for a dark thing, but it actually muddies your work. So if you're looking to do shadows, do like a real dark brown or a purple or a really dark blue. This is going to be fun because it's quite a bright purple. But again, it doesn't matter because we can add a hint of the brown when I find it. I think that's the black. I'm going to take black out so we don't use it. And there is a brown here somewhere. Let's see. I think the brown's hiding. There we are, in the middle. Get the brush, and just helps to give different tones, so it's not all just one colour. And a water brush will help you if you're a beginner to using watercolour. And fibre tip pens will help you if you're new to watercolour. I would say that this is a complete beginner-friendly project to do. You get the water brush, a decent one, like I've put on screen. It was very cost-effective. It was under €4 for me in France, this particular one. I don't particularly recommend the Pentel Aquash. Everybody does like them, and they say they're so good. But I'm afraid I personally never got on with them. The quality of the bristles were no good for me. but perhaps they have changed and gotten better. So basically, you need a water brush that's good quality. And you need a mixed media sketchbook or cheap watercolour paper. Basically, when I say cheap, you need to have good quality paper. As you can see, this is mixed media, and it cost £12 without delivery from Jackson Art Supplies, this sketchbook. So you can buy watercolour paper, a block of it. Clairefontaine do, for example, in France, I think it's called their Gold line. And it's 50 sheets, a block that's glued on full sides. And it is just under €10 for those 50 sheets. And that is perfect for practicing all of this technique. I do loose sheets of paper, but because I am so prolific, I don't have the storage space for the loose sheets of paper. So they would be more for selling. If people would like an original piece of art, they would come to me and I will then do on the loose sheet of watercolour. But other than that, I tend to do a lot more sketchbook work because it's all contained in a book that I can then store away safely when it's completed. So we're going to do the roof now, and we're going to add some of this grey. And what we can still do, just like you would with watercolour, is build up layers. You can still do that with your fibre tip pens. And you can buy Crayola, your super tips. This is exactly the same. Buy those if you're in America, and a water brush, and either your mixed media paper. It's got to be 150 GSM or higher for this to work, and your water brush, your pens, and you really are good to go. And you can practice away doing watercolour techniques without worrying that you're ruining good quality art, materials. Because sometimes that is the thing. You spend money on, say, branded watercolours, and then you're scared to death to use them because you don't know what you're doing, or you feel you don't know what you're doing. This stops that problem. And a water brush, in case you don't know, is literally, this is the brush, a water brush, and you unscrew this end, unscrews, and this barrel you just fill with water directly from the tap. Fill it up. Or, for me, I don't use tap water, but you could with these. It's just I'm in the habit of using a pipette, and this is a pipette. You can get them from Jackson Art Supplies or probably Amazon. It's a squeezy little thing like a science lab would use. It sucks up the water and you fill it up, fill up the barrel. I use bottled water because I'm used to doing that with watercolours, because tap water can contain a lot of chemicals and chlorine. Now, real fine art watercolourists will use distilled water. Now, I don't do that. I used our safe mineral water, because in France, the ones that we buy has literally like nothing in it. There's no problem. So I'm satisfied with the bottled rather than the distilled, because it is terribly expensive distilled water here. You can, of course, if you've time, make your own, but I don't have the time or the equipment to do all of that. Distilled water is basically you're steaming the water, you're boiling it and collecting the steam. And the steam is then, when it settles, turns into the water. It's like water vapour that you're collecting, and that is the distilled. So, lesson over on that. We're now going to carry on. We're going to add in the scribble of the water now. I just like how you get a completely different effect with these pens well, not these particular pens, just fibre tip pens in general, the kids stuff, you just get a completely different look with them. And I love that it has not cost the earth. Sometimes it's just great for artists to just like let loose and play. Squeeze some more water. Get a bit more. Nope, squeezed a bit too much there. We'll probably end up with cauliflowers. And cauliflower, in case you don't know, again, if you add too much water to an area, it will start drying. The other area will start drying before the cauliflower area, the one where you put too much water. So it will give you a shape like a cauliflower. I also, just so you know, I keep a little duster, a chiffon cloth, to the side where I wipe my brush to keep it clean. I don't like the sponges that you can get because the bits can break off and go onto your brush and it's annoying. So I always keep that to hand. And they are cheap. We can get a pack of 3 for just under €3. And you just put them in the washing machine then, after a couple of months of them being filthy. Can also scribble directly into a shiny surface. If you have a little ceramic dish, you can go into that. I'm just picking up the colour directly, as you would with a watercolour. I'll get my ceramic dishes. I don't know if you'll see it at the back there, but maybe if I put it at the side, you might see it. But basically, scribble all over. And then scribble squeeze the water. And you've got some colour to add. The only off-putting thing about using a water brush, and a lot of watercolour artists are not going to like them, is because you have too much water on your paper, which is why it won't look smooth. You won't get smooth washes. But for practicing and for plein air work, which is painting outside, I would say that they're perfectly fine. Just for being loose, I have no objection to that. And then just check with the back of your finger. Don't put your fingertips ever, even if it is just using your fibre tip pens, because remember, we're using this for practice and learning, for beginners. So you need to get into the habit of not putting your fingertips on your work to test if it is dry. Use the back of your fingers, because it basically, whether you wash your hands thoroughly or not, we always have grease on the hands. The body always has this, and it makes it a lot harder for watercolour to adhere to paper when grease is on it, any paper. So use the back of your fingers or your hand to just lightly test how wet the paper is before you carry on. And we're still needing to dry here. I almost touched it with my fingertips, but almost dry. And then we can go in with the second layer. You don't let it dry, this is what happens. You get pilling. And pilling is when the surface of the paper starts breaking up and you get little dots of paper. The pilling will happen more on paper that is not actual watercolour paper. And it's coming along quite nicely now. Just scribble some more water. Doesn't matter the direction, just scribble. And squeeze. The more water the merrier for an even coverage. And also, if you have some scrap paper to one side, put it underneath, because you get curling. It will save the page underneath from getting covered in the blue ink. There we are. You'll have to let that dry. And then, for the underneath of the bridge, I would usually, probably as a cheat, use black. Or what I do is use the sepia ink in my fountain pen sometimes to finish that off. So it's things like that. It is a mixed media sketchbook. You can use multiple things. But to show you that you can get away with just using your felt tip pens, if you have a dark blue and a brown, and most packs do, just go over the top with them and you'll get a kind of blacky colour anyway. We're aiming for a dark colour to show off the angle, that's all. Just for dimension. Just cleaning that up a bit. Slowly dragging the brush and lifting the colour. And then wiping it on the cloth. And then what we'll do is go over with a second layer of the grey. You can see watermarks are coming on the house here because the water brush has a lot of water that it gives off, but that's why I like using them sometimes, because they add the texture for me. It works without you having to add anything else. I'll do a close-up on that to show you what I mean. So I say there are no mistakes in art. You have to go with it with watercolour. The watercolours kind of do the work for you. And it doesn't matter what you're using as a watercolour. They still will do the work for you. Just make up more greeny blue. And I like not being limited. Now, a lot of social media will say you need to post consistently and you need to only draw and paint one theme in order to be successful. But I can't do that. I am prolific and multimedia. I do gouache, I do watercolours, I do pens, I do inks, sketchbooks. You know, there's lots of different things. I've done and do some digital for my Redbubble shop. So it is very constricting, social media can be at times. But you have to just not let it affect you. You have to ignore the algorithm and growing. I keep telling myself that I still don't have my first 1,000 subscribers. And this is year 7 that I am on. And the struggle is very, very real, guys. Very real. But we are growing now. I've seen a big increase this year. My videos are being watched a lot more. My watch time is up. So thank you very, very much. I do appreciate you guys. And if you could give me a thumbs up, it would make my day. It lets me know that my content is helping you. Thank you. And we're finished. So can you see, we're just using some basic fibre tip pens for kids and this cheapo, good quality water brush and a mixed media sketchbook. We have created this. And you can see I changed the colour here. I didn't have my reference to hand because it was on the phone and also from months ago, so I had forgotten. So it didn't look like being green. So I thought, well, I'll make it brown like soil. And then I might add green later, I don't know, just to mix in with the brown. But as it stands, I like how it looks. And I added in a boat and some purple highlights on the water. So with that said, guys, I hope that you have found this useful and that if you're looking to learn to do watercolour, that this takes some of the fear out of attempting it. I know you can do it. And I hope you will learn to use watercolours. If you found this helpful, let me know. and I can then do part 2, which will show you the watercolour brushes and the paints that you can next use. Don't forget to give me the thumbs up and share my video and comment. And I'll catch you really soon. Bye!